All right, welcome back to the Just Mets podcast, week 3 of the offseason. Nothing's happened yet, but there is still a ton to talk about. I'm your host, Rich MacLeod, joined by my co-host, Andrew Claudio. Andrew, how you doing this week?
I'm great, Rich. What do you mean nothing's happened yet? So much has happened, especially when you tune into the Mets internet, known as Mets Twitter, Mets Threads, Mets Blue Sky, other apps that I don't use.
Is anybody on Blue Sky? It's like
judged by the internet traffic, I would say that so much has happened. So much has been concluded by the offseason. So much has then been counterpointed as a result. And look, it's actually pretty amazing that we have a whole list of topics to go through today, that a lot of it is quote unquote news, when it's like nothing's actually happened yet, which is the fun of the baseball offseason.
Yeah, that's the distinctor. It's a lot of news, a lot of buzz, a lot of things to talk about, but no tangible things. As we're recording this Sunday night, November 16th, there has been no real signings at this point for not just the Mets, but for any team. Again, it's early on in the process. We just had the GM meetings, which is really, I always think, is kind of the official start of the actual offseason. So I think these next couple of weeks leading into the winter meetings that happen in early December should be the moment where we actually start to get some real things happening. But we do have a lot to talk about. So I want to get right into it. We've got some Pete Alonso updates from the week. We had Scott Boras holding court, as he likes to do. He has his puns every year. I think he said you got to pay the power piper with Pete Alonso. A lot of P's in that.
A lot of alliteration.
I always wonder how long do you think he spends writing these every year? Because he had some Bregman ones about like you got to pay the Starbucks. He was doing a lot of coffee things because of Boston and Duncan.
Yeah,
I wonder how long he works on this stuff.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that he and his team of writers came up with that, and that it wasn't just this very accomplished but old man that decided to come up with this very catchy. I will say I was impressed, but I thought he was accidentally doing it at first. Like, oh, this is gonna be. In fact, I'm gonna do it justice and just say Pete's pursuers are primed to pay the power piper. Pete picked a perfect period to play preeminently at a real primary position. A playoff parched plethora will pounce to participate in the polar plunge. Like, well done.
That is, by my live count, is 21 P's.
Yeah.
By the way, that's a lot.
So what's funny is, like, the takeaway from this whole answer is that Pete's willing to play DH. Like, the actual takeaway from the question that was asked to Boras was, would Pete Alonso and any team that signs him be expecting at bats at DH in the future, whether that not be this season or next season? And he said, I think at this point in Pete's career, he's about winning, no doubt. Had that question a lot, no doubt that and then goes into Pete's pursuers, PP, alliteration sentence. So yeah, that was the takeaway I had from the Boras comments for sure.
Yeah, Pete. I mean, most of the time, those are more for fun. Boras does what he does. If the players are at these, they're all doing the market stuff. We'll talk about Diaz in a second. He kind of did the same thing. I think like the DH stuff is like expected. I don't think there's any way around it, whether Pete comes back to the Mets or he signs somewhere else. Eventually he's going to get some DH time, whether that's full time or part of the time. I think that's just almost goes without saying. I think like the positive-ish news, and it wasn't anything major, was I think it was from John Heyman that said that the two sides had actually spoken this week, and it seemed like it was actually fairly positive to start off, that things had been, at least on the surface level, had been feeling better than they did this time last year. So I think that is promising. And then the only other bit about it was just a potential Pete Alonso suitor that we probably hadn't thought of before, which was the Baltimore Orioles, according to John Heyman. So interesting. I have a hard time believing that the Mets are going to lose Pete Alonso to the Baltimore Orioles, but you never know. Weirder things have happened, I suppose.
It's not the American League East team I'm worried about, for what it's worth. I think there's one in Boston. Now, what I'm curious about, you mentioned Bregman. I am very curious about how what happens with Bregman affects Pete's market. Because if the Red Sox lose Bregman, do they pivot and potentially enter into some type of Pete Alonso sweepstakes? Or does Pete get taken off the board ahead of time by a team that is much more aggressive about signing him, potentially the Mets? So, I mean, this will lead into when we talk about Stearns' comments, but I am also very fascinated to see how the market develops. I'm also very curious to see which domino is the first to fall, because I don't think it's going to be Pete Alonso. It might be the guy we're about to talk about, though.
Yeah, I do think it's probably going to be Edwin Diaz, at least as far as concerns to the Mets. He actually was at the GM meetings and was at Citi Field for I believe it was an exhibition game between Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic over the weekend. So that was cool. He was
interesting highlights of this game too. Yeah, he was. Well, so go on. Say where Diaz was. Yeah.
So he was in Steve Cohen's personal suite, from what it appeared like. So, you know, you like to see that. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. I think from Cohen's perspective, you're trying to sweeten the pot any way you can. So it makes sense for him. And you know, Diaz is not going to turn that down either. He's the belle of the ball right now. So
right.
You like to see that. He was at the GM meetings. He said the quote that everybody's talking about was that he was 50-50 on his chances of returning, which is exactly what I would expect any free agent to say at this point. It'd be kind of silly to say anything else because you'd be giving leverage to one side or the other. And the other thing, I talked about this on Saturday morning in what you have dubbed the coffee show. But a very scary headline from Ken Rosenthal that is way less scary once you actually read the article. For those who didn't see it, the headline was, "A perfect storm is brewing for the Mets to lose Edwin Diaz." But when you read the article, it's just like, hey, here's a few suitors of high market teams that are interested in Edwin Diaz, and we just don't know if Stearns wants to pay a closer that much money. Not particularly new information. The only thing I thought that was actually interesting or informative from that article was that the Atlanta Braves want to be a top 5 team in payroll and that they were interested in Diaz. That was new information. Nothing else surprised me in terms of the Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Tigers were mentioned, but not this like smoking gun that it appeared to be when it first popped up on my Twitter feed.
There's also a sports book. I forget which one. It's probably the one that's not real. That listed the Dodgers as the favorites to sign Edwin Diaz.
Like poly market thing.
Yeah, like Bovada or whatever it's called. And a Dodgers writer ran with it and said Dodgers listed as favorites to sign Edwin Diaz. And then reporting happened. It was like the Dodgers have shown interest in Edwin Diaz, but never has the like they will be pursuers of Edwin Diaz been concluded. I'll start here. The Dominican Republic Puerto Rico game. Robinson Cano apparently retired from this was his last game ever played on American soil. He
played in that game.
He played second base and got taken out of the game to a standing ovation by one of the coaches for Dominican Republic, which was Luis Castillo. So some old Mets second baseman got showcased in this.
Is Oliver Perez there too?
Right? Yeah, just the whole band got back together. Carlos Beltran was the manager of one of the teams, I believe, Team Puerto Rico.
He also had an interesting comment. I don't know if you were going to bring it up, but
no, it wasn't actually. What was his comment?
Well, Beltran, you know, I believe is still associated with the Mets front office in some ways, like an advisor, I believe. He did say to the media at Citi Field this weekend that re-signing Diaz and Alonso were top priorities for the team, which again, maybe surface level stuff, but I find it interesting.
I hope so. And it was nice to see Carlos Beltran finally get to manage a game at Citi Field. Look, the comments of Diaz saying 50-50, I want to make clear, he didn't actually say, like, I believe it's 50-50. Someone asked him, what are the chances of you returning to the Mets? He's like, hey, man, I'd say 50-50. I'm not in negotiations at the moment. That's between my agent and teams.
Right.
We're exploring free agency. I'd like to go back to the Mets, but I'm not involved in negotiations right now. But the key takeaway I had from the full answer that guy given was that he's just like, he's in the very early stages of this. And then when it comes time to talk to the player will enter negotiations as well. And I imagine the Mets will, of course, be one of those teams that get to like a final round of bidding. But this, I mean, we'll spend the rest of the episode talking about this. I agree with you about the Rosenthal article that we should be very clear. The Athletic gave a headline to that was very scary, and
reporters don't write their headlines.
So I'm trying to throw Rosenthal some bail for just a very information-filled article that then had a very scary headline for Mets fans.
The first sentence of the article, though, is the headline.
Headline. I just wonder if the editor didn't then add that line.
It's possible. It's definitely possible.
Regardless, a perfect storm is brewing for this, at least. Don't get mad at him for this. A perfect storm is brewing for the Mets to lose Edwin Diaz is the headline. And I do agree that if Stearns doesn't want to spend big on a closer, which we'll spend the rest of the episode talking about, it is a perfect storm. There's going to be options. Like, he could go. He's going to have teams that are willing to give him the contract that he wants. I think if it's the Mets, he'll stay in New York. He likes it here. His family likes it here. The team likes him here. The Mets need him here. Like, there is a perfect storm brewing for him to go back to the Mets too.
Yeah,
it's going to depend on what the president of baseball operations wants, which he said some things at the GM meetings too.
Yeah, and we'll kind of, this whole episode you've already seen from the title is going to be focused on Edwin Diaz, but also just what do you do if he doesn't come back? We'll also get into the Pete and Diaz stuff a little bit more because we are doing the confidence meter updates every week. So we'll do that right after we finish with the other updates from the week. Couple other things that came in this past week that concern the Mets. We had another Japanese international free agent who we found out is going to be posted soon. Hasn't happened yet, but right-hander, hopefully I don't butcher this, TATSUYA IMAI will be posted this offseason, according to John Heyman. You can add him to the list of potential aces or frontline starters that the Mets could look into. Kind of wish that news came out last week.
Well, okay. It did. It came out hours after we got done recording, Rich. Damn you, John Heyman.
Damn it.
I'm just going to say this. My very limited half-assed internet research scouting report of TATSUYA IMAI. He throws 99, has a slider, has a changeup and a splitter that he works into his repertoire too. And last year developed the sinker. The stats on him are insane when you look at his last couple years in Japan. He also said some comments that he's someone that has always played like he wants to win at like their version of the World Series, like win a championship no matter what. And he expects to bring that to whatever team he has in America as well. His stats he recorded last season a 1.92 ERA over 163 and 2/3 innings pitched. He struck out 178 batters and walked 45, only giving up 6 home runs over those 100.
Wow.
He would be the Mets' best pitcher very easily. I mean, if Scooble's not available, I think he becomes the best theoretical pitcher available on the market. But,
yeah, and
we'll see.
He is also a year younger than Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who the Mets obviously went very hard after a couple off seasons ago and was the behemoth hero of the World Series this year. So kind of lines up. It seems like obviously the Mets got Kodai Senga several off seasons ago with a different front office. But seems like David Stearns has been kind of swimming around the international market the last few years, hasn't landed anybody. Would be a very interesting name to bring in, especially knowing that the options for true aces are limited, as we kind of dug in on last week.
I have a hot take potentially.
Okay.
And I got to be honest, I don't even fully believe in it yet. I endorse going after him instead of trading for Skubal.
Whoa.
Again, I don't know if I fully believe in it yet, because like if Skubal's available, I'm going to be like, never mind, trade for Skubal. But
that is a hot.
If it's just going to cost me money, then I get like all the other prospects, like go trade for Fernando Tatis. Like you then can use your prospects and your assets to find talent elsewhere. And with what's going, like we haven't, it's not on our rundown, but like the Padres basically came out this week, and the official report was that they're considering looking for new ownership and potentially new investors. The takeaway or the summary was we're broke, which might mean that someone like a Fernando Tatis Jr. could become available, or a Jake Cronenworth could become available. So I would be fascinated by what the price is. And if you're telling me I could have the next Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's 3 years younger than Tariq Skubal, in TATSUYA IMAI, to come to the Mets, and I could then use assets elsewhere, you could. Mm-hmm. Again, the day that it becomes out that Tariq Skubal's available, I'll then pivot to, actually, I want Tariq Skubal. I'd rather have him instead, because this guy's probably going to the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, pie in the sky, but porque no los dos is how I feel.
So we want both? Okay, you know what?
Screw it.
If that's the
Dodgers,
pivot, yes,
if the Dodgers can do it, why can't we do it? We got the money.
The Dodgers. So who's the Skubal in this case that the Dodgers got?
Well, okay, it's not a 1-to-1
because it's Glasnow's the one they traded for.
Yeah, I mean they traded for Glasnow. They got Yamamoto. They signed Snell a year after that. If they can keep adding on via trade and signing people to high money, why can't the Mets do it?
You know what? I'm in. Skubal, IMAI, Nolan McLean. That's how we compete with the Dodgers, as we build a super rotation as well. Also, signing Diaz and Pete Alonso, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Not our money.
No.
David Stearns might have something to say about that. He said a few other things that I want to run through before we get to our confidence meter. Couple of notes there. Basically said Brett Beatty's going to be starting third baseman next year. No surprise for me. Said penciled in as the significant third base for significant third base time next year. Think he earned it. There's also just no other great options in the system there either.
The question he was answering was about what does he view as third base next year? That's a Bregman question, right? So he said, we're exploring options. I think, like I said, Brett Beatty has can be penciled in for significant time at third base next year. I did find it fascinating. Like, didn't then also say he can play second as well, but said like he's earned time at third base next year, and didn't really mention anyone else like Vientos or Mauricio or anybody else internally. So I would look. Jokes aside, with our buddy Mr. Danishevsky, like Brett Beatty absolutely proved that he can be a solid like 7 hitter that bats that plays third base every day for the New York Mets. Like I'm A-okay with Brett Beatty being the opening day third baseman. If they can upgrade, there are several upgrades, but I think on the roster he's their best third baseman for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Vientos, again,
he's a DH.
I'll believe he's on the Mets in 2026 when I see it.
Right.
Same goes for McNeil. Mauricio, obviously, you can't pencil in there, and they don't really have any other third baseman really in the minor league system at all. The only other one would have been Jesus Baez, who they traded for Ryan Helsley. So he's gone. And yeah, there's no real other options at that position. So makes sense to me. Kodai Senga, there was some trade rumors coming out this week that the Mets were getting some inquiries. We don't know who those teams were, how interested they were, what they would be willing to give up. Stearns was asked about that as well. And he said what I expect a baseball executive to say publicly, which is we expect Kodai Senga to be as a part of our rotation. So nothing surprising there to me either. But I'm
leaving this to you because I know this is like one of your things. You would like to see him off the team. So
it's not just that I would like to. It's more of just I don't believe that they're going to salvage that relationship with the way things went this year. It just seemed negative for a team that doesn't really trash their players publicly, and a manager that really doesn't do that ever. Carlos Mendoza was quite critical publicly of Kodai Senga, much more than any other player I've seen in his 2 years here. So I am curious what that says, in addition to the fact that Kodai Senga was injured and had issues this year. And from reporting we've seen and conversations I've had on some of these past podcasts, just seemed like the Mets organization and Kodai Senga and his, team or whatever do not seem like they are fully in sync anymore. And I just wonder how long are both parties going to continue to put themselves through that. So we'll see. But Stearns says what I expect him to say about almost any player that's currently on the roster is they're on the roster. Mm-hmm. We expect them to be here. And if that changes, that changes. I'll say the most, I guess, interesting or unexpected thing, in my opinion, to come from Stearns was when he was asked about center field. And he had, he was asked, what do you look for, or what do you view as your center field solution? Do you view it as like an internal thing? He obviously brought up Tyrone Taylor, who's still on the team. But without being asked about him specifically, he brought up Carson Benj and directly said he's going to come into spring training with a chance to make the team, which I was honestly kind of surprised about. That was more direct than I expected. I didn't really think that was going to be the case. I expected Benj to be on the team at some point next year, but just flat out say, hey, he's going to have an opportunity to be the center fielder from opening day. That surprised me. How did you feel about that?
I think, again, if you're just looking internally of what they have right now,
sure,
there's no other answer to give other than Tyrone Taylor, then Carson Benj. I don't think it precludes them from or exempts them, I should say, from potentially going out and getting a center fielder. Now, he's not going to say, well, I already said at the GM meetings that Carson Benj has a chance to win the job. I think based off of their options, he should be. I will be shocked if, unless it's like Pete Alonso the year he made the team, like it's just that undeniable that they come to spring training and Benj is clearly the best center fielder in the organization. I wouldn't be shocked if he is like a April 30th call up or whatever the line is for him then to gain that extra year of service time. But yeah, we've talked about it. Center field is one of the questions I have about this offseason. So we'll see if Carson Benj is that guy and it proves that he can make the team on opening day.
Yeah. If that's the case, and let's say, the Mets don't bring in an external center fielder in any capacity this offseason. They're like, got Tyrone Taylor, we got Carson Benj, maybe like a scrap heap type of guy is option 3. I don't think I'd love that unless like Benj is truly much better right away than I'm expecting a rookie to be. I would like to see them go get somebody that, again, it's limited availability. You're talking about guys like Harrison Bader, though he might want a multiple year deal. And I don't think you can give him that. Or like a Luis Robert, trading for him, which they could have done in the summer, wound up not doing that. That sort of thing I would be interested in still, and just seeing, how the cards fall. And if Benj still outplays that player, then he earns the job and you figure it out. I would prefer that just rather than not adding somebody. But again, we're in mid-November. A lot of this is still GM speak. And I always say to people and have to remind myself that what baseball executives say in public, you probably shouldn't trust most of it because there's an agenda.
Yeah. Again, he answered the question based off of what's on the roster at the moment. And I don't think there is a better answer other than Tyrone Taylor than Carson Bench. Like you said, if that's actually the plan going into this season, is that it's Taylor until it's Bench's job, then Bench better be the truth and better be the center fielder that you believe he is. Because then I don't need to be looking at Luis Robert getting traded to another team. And it's like, oh, that could have been us, but you're playing David Stearns. So I actually trust their evaluation on that. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Couple last things. We found out Lee Mazzilli, Carlos Beltran, and Bobby Valentine will be inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame.
Oh, hold on. You skipped my favorite Stearns comment.
I'm flip-flopping.
Oh, you're flipping it. Okay, got it. Okay, got it.
So that's exciting news. Do
you think Beltran makes the Hall of Fame period this year?
Yeah, I think so. I think based on just I couldn't tell you the percentage off the top of my head, but he was right there.
He was 70.4. Do you think
75?
He goes in with a Mets hat?
Yes.
So then this is all leading to a third question that I was.
Are they going to retire his number?
I was surprised that they announced this without like seeing the Hall of Fame results. My projection into the future, Rich, is that this becomes like Beltran ends up getting his own day and he gets Carlos Beltran, or at this event they announce he's getting his number retired in 2027 if there's a baseball season.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Beltran makes the Hall of Fame as a Met, I don't think you can't not retire his number.
They've retired the two Hall of Famers that wear their cap. Like,
yeah, that used to be the sole bar during the Wilpon era. Was like, did you make the Hall of Fame, and did you make the Hall of Fame as a Met? And that's why it was only Seaver for a long time, and then it was Piazza. Obviously, that purview has opened up under Steve Cohen. The numbers are close if you look at them between his time with the Royals and his time with the Mets. The years were relatively similar. The stats are all fairly close, give or take a few. I just think his prime years were spent in New York. I think people much more remember Carlos Beltran as a Met than a Royal. Honestly, I think people remember him as an Astro more than they remember him as a Royal. And I think the numbers are right there to justify the fact that he'll be a Met. And usually if it's kind of a tie, they also will let the player's opinion on the matter maybe influence that. And, Beltran is far more tied with the Mets organization, even after they let him go as manager a few years ago, than he ever has been with the Royals. So I would expect him to go in as a Met.
Do you know who currently wears number 15 for the New York Mets?
Tyrone Taylor, right?
Correct. Do you know who wore it before him? I'll give you $100 right now if you can get this one.
Would that be
2023? 2023.
2 years ago. Gosh, I don't know. It's probably some random.
You'll never get this. Danny Mendick, the guy who did it before him. Devin Marrero, the guy that did it before him and wore it for 6 freaking years. Matt Reynolds.
Oh my God. Matt Reynolds on the Mets for 6 years. That's
2016 to 2022. Now, maybe he had a couple stops, but like Cameron Maben, Juan Lagares switched his number to number 15 at one point. Guillermo Heredia, Brian Dozier played for the Mets in 2020.
What?
Of course, yes, that happened.
What a year.
Luis Guillorme and Travis d'Arnaud bore it before that. Point being, they've handed this thing out, this number.
Yeah, they have not they've soft retired numbers in the past. If you notice, when David Wright stopped playing, they didn't give it out. They had they do that with numbers. You'll notice like they don't give out number 8 for Gary Carter. They haven't been giving out 7 as much lately with Reyes.
Brett Beatty currently wears number 7.
Oh,
yeah, but they hadn't had number 7 since Stroman had it for like a day in 2019.
Before he switched to 0.
And he switched it and like in the offseason said, I want to honor Jose Reyes. And then a very vocal part of the fan base said, no.
Maybe
he didn't listen at all, so
maybe it's funny because people probably are against that for two completely different reasons. People who really like Reyes and don't want to see anybody else wear his number, and people who like me don't really like Reyes because of things that he did that we're not going to talk about right now.
We're not. Those same people should then have had the same problem with Darryl Strawberry's number retirement day, but I understand the hesitations and the reservations about it. Regardless, I would be, as far as this how it pertains to Beltran, I'm knowing the Hall of Fame vote is coming soon. I was surprised they announced this now.
Yeah, it's it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
we'll see, and maybe there's things to come with that they won't share until we find out more information.
Right.
Cool. Last two things from Stearns. Long list this week. Jeff McNeil probably will see less time in center field in 2026, probably because he's not going to be on the Mets.
That's the funny part about the question is that he was asked about McNeil. He probably see less time in center field. It's like, yeah, he's probably going to see less time on the field, period. Yeah.
I would be surprised. And then the reason I flip-flop, because I want to go right into the confidence meter, is he did speak on Alonso and Diaz, of course. He said they will let the market play out. Not a surprise. And then there was one other thing about Juan Soto that got buried in here, that he has not had discussions about playing other positions, which again doesn't surprise me. If you're going to move Soto eventually, it's probably to DH. I don't see him as like going to first or left field.
Okay. I've been waiting to talk about this since I heard Andy Martino interview him. I've literally this whole pod, we're half an hour in. I've been wanting to talk about this. Andy Martino, my brother, my friend, my colleague in this industry. When you're interviewing someone, like follow-ups are good. I know you've done them before, so I know you know this principle. So you asked David Stearns a leading question that you in the entire interview about Juan Soto. That if Pete Alonso leaves, would you potentially ask him to play first base? The obvious answer he's going to say is no. And David Stearns then goes, I just want him focusing on right field right now and getting better there. The obvious follow-up is, what about DH? Would you want to see him play 30 games there? Has there been any discussion about Juan Soto DHing this season? And it never came up. You asked him about first base. He's never played any other position but the outfield his whole life. But you know what he could play without having to leave right field at all? DH. I almost said first base. See, you got me doing it now, Andy Martino.
I thought you were about to drop the F-bomb.
I was so mad. I was just like, okay, the answer that I want to know is, has there been any conversation with Juan Soto about DHing a dozen times? Because then that opens the Mets to the outfield market. You could go after a Cody Bellinger or get into the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes if right field isn't locked down to one player. And guess what? I still don't know the answer. Even if you know it already, Andy Martino, I am a member of the public. And I needed you to re-ask a question in a better way, sir. So annoyed, Rich. So annoyed. I just wanted to know that
off
answer.
Your chest.
Confidence meter. I have no confidence in that man's interviewing ability. Go report stuff and get us mad. Anyway.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I almost completely buried that one, but it was worth the wait.
I was literally waiting this whole time, just like, please say it so I can go off. I've been stewing since I read it, or since I watched it. 4.5 minutes for the question I wanted you to ask, and you didn't even ask the way I wanted you to ask it, Andy. Goodness.
Oh man. Funny enough, in our pre-production conversations, I was like, all the news from the week, like 15 minutes, maybe 20, and here we are.
I said it'll take most of the episode. Personally, I did say that.
I choose to be optimistic, even if it's naive. All right, we're going to get into our confidence meter. We talked about this last week. If you're watching on YouTube, you get to see our silly little faces on here. I spent the weekend making this because I thought it'd be fun. If you're just listening, well, then you're lucky because you don't have to see 2 times our faces. So either way, you win. Last week, when we talked about Pete Alonso. We're doing this every single week now until both of them sign, for both Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz. When we spoke last week, our confidence meter that Pete Alonso was going to return was quite low. I was at 30%. Andrew, you were at 20%. I'm going to go first here in our updates, but I actually grew a little bit more optimistic. Not super optimistic, but we went up. I went up from 30 to 35% just based on the fact that there hasn't been any big scary reports that have come out this week. It sounds like from John Hayden's report that the initial conversations went positive and there was a better vibe about them from last year. So I bump up to 35% now, still not in the greatest spot. But how were you feeling after this week?
I also bumped up to 25%, which is it up 5% from the previous week. Same reasons. The confidence meter being that the conversations they've had so far have seemed to be better than they were last season. So they're already off to a better start now than they were a year before, which tells me he is a priority. Also, like you mentioned Beltran's comments. Mm-hmm. Had I heard them before this podcast, I might have actually gone up to 30, but I'm sticking with 25% because I'm overall pessimistic that they will bring him back.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting what can change in a week, and these are going to go up and down a lot, I would assume, over these next couple of weeks. But the fact that Pete, who we were both really low on, we actually grew more optimistic. And then conversely, Edwin Diaz, we were quite confident the last time we spoke about this. I was at 60%. You were even more confident at 65%, but we had the 50-50 comment, we had the article, and just like reports in general where I'm not freaking out and like he's gone, it's 100%, he's not coming back. But, you know, the wind was not blowing in the positive direction this week. So if Edwin Diaz is 50-50 on coming back to the Mets, I'm at 49%. I'm one single tick below that. That's kind of how I felt.
Which is why I'm boring with mine. I'm at exactly 50% now that I think Edwin Diaz, I'm taking the man at his word. He said 50-50. I'll probably come back. I do think there are reasons for confidence on both sides outside of those comments. The fact that the full context of his comments was he's letting his agent do the negotiating at the moment. This man has never gotten to explore free agency. The last time he was a free agent, he signed mere minutes after free agency opened, or teams were allowed to negotiate with their own players. And he just re-signed with the Mets because Steve Cohen wanted him to come back. I think this is someone I mean, look, this is a thing that you see a lot in the NBA. That you used to see it a lot in the 2000s, that guys that went straight from high school to the pros, like Dwight Howard, LeBron James, even Kobe had something similar. Like when you never got recruited, you eventually like long for free agency because it's the first time you actually get to go do that. Mm-hmm. And Edwin Diaz like never got to be recruited by a college or a team in the States. And I'm assuming this is going to be his one real chance to do it and make some real money. So I think this is an opportunity for him. And I wish him luck. And I will put it at 50-50 that I think there's enough positive reasons to be positive that he'll come back as there are reasons to be negative that he'll come back.
Yeah, I think as of right now, heat of the moment feels more like a coin flip than where we were last week. That could change 12 hours from now. That could change before this podcast goes live. God knows we experienced that last week. So we'll see. We will keep doing this until both these guys sign. But good transition to 39 minutes in. Get to the actual meat and potatoes of this episode. And Andrew, just like we did last week, I'm going to toss it over to you.
Sounds good. So I'm actually going to play a game with you, Rich, some trivia to start. Because this is about the importance of Edwin Diaz, whether it should be Edwin Diaz or bust, and how you replace him. How many times since 2011 do you think the final out of the World Series was recorded by the team's closer on opening day?
Ooh. Not Since 2011, you're saying?
Since 2011. And I'll actually give you some history for the whole century before 2011. So 2000, Mariano Rivera. Don't have to tell any Mets fan how that World Series ended. 2001, don't have to tell anybody how that World Series ended. A closer didn't get the final out of that World Series. 2002, Troy Percival for the Angels, best reliever on the team. So we're already two for two in final outs for a closer. 2003, Josh Beckett threw a complete game. So he didn't. So we're 2-2, 2 up, 2 down. Then 7 years in a row. Keith Folk, 2004. Bobby Jenks, 2005. Adam Wainwright, Jason Isringhausen was the closer on opening day. Mm-hmm. So Adam Wainwright, technically not the one on opening day, but then became their closer. But he counts as a no on this. Then 4 straight years, Jonathan Papelbon, Brad Lidge, Mariano Rivera, and Brian Wilson, all the closer on opening day. And got the final out of the World Series. We're going from 2011 to 2025. How many times do you think it's happened, Rich?
I'm going to say, so that's covering 15 seasons. I'm going to say that it has happened 6 times. And the reason that I'm going to say that is just off the cuff. This past World Series was closed by Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is a starter. The previous season was Walker Buehler, who is a starter. I could not tell you who closed it out for the Rangers in 2023 because I could not have given a shit about that World Series, to be completely honest with you.
The ratings reflect that not a lot of people gave a shit about that World Series.
I was just glad that the Phillies weren't in it, and then I didn't watch it. But a lot of examples there. Charlie Morton in 2017, I remember pitched the last 3-4 innings against the Dodgers. A few other examples like that. So I'm going to go with 6 out of the 15.
So 2023, someone named Josh Sborz, Sborz, he got the last out, and the only save of his life was Game 5 of the World Series.
Wow.
So, yeah, like he got one in 2021, I should say. His only save of that postseason, and then his second one of his life was that World Series.
Bumgarner in 2014, by the way, finished against the Royals.
The answer to the question, I'll jump in, is 2. Like, it's Ryan Pressly in 2022 and Will Smith for the Braves in 2021. Now there are like guys that became the team throughout the season, like of the midseason trade or just over the course of a postseason, developed into their closer. So if you want to go in order, like Jason Mott in 2011 became the closer after Isringhausen went down. Sergio Romo in 2012 became the closer after Casilla, blanking on his first name, but Casilla became the closer, and then he went down. Koji Uehara became the closer in 2013 after Andrew Bailey went down from the Red Sox. 2014, Madison Bumgarner was the only person to ever touch the ball for the Giants throughout that World Series, apparently. Even like 2015, the New York Mets, Greg Holland was the opening day closer, and then Wade Davis became the closer come playoff time. Mike Montgomery, because, I mean, their closer that season wasn't Chapman on opening day. That was a midseason trade. And then Mike Montgomery got the save in the World Series.
Extra innings.
You mentioned Charlie Morton in 2017. Chris Sale got the final outs in 2018 for the Red Sox because Craig Kimbrell was a terrifying sight to see if you had a lead come the 9th inning if you were a Red Sox fan. Daniel Hudson, we remember him. I wanted the Mets to get him because the Nationals were stuck throwing Sean Doolittle out there, and he kept blowing saves specifically to Todd Frazier on Friday nights at Citi Field.
I was at that game.
I was at that game as well. So, like, we knew how bad that Nationals bullpen was, and their final 3 outs came from a deadline acquisition. Julio Urias, talk about complicated reputations off the field, got the final 6 outs for the Dodgers in the bubble in 2020. I got to be honest, Rich, you know what is terrifying to me? That David Stearns sees this list and says, see, I don't need to spend $20+ million on a closer. Look who keeps getting the final out of World Series games. Not the team's closer, not the team's best reliever, not the team's best reliever on opening day. And I don't mean to turn this into a, like, do you trust David Stearns conversation? But we did just go over the Rosenthal report and Rosenthal like perfect storm article. And I do think there is some built-in curiosity within the industry of what David Stearns wants to do with his closer. Now, I'm sure we'll lay out over the course of the next however many minutes. The plan B, C, and D are not great if you want to even be on this list. But when I tell you that in the last 15 years, only twice was a team's like opening day closer the guy that got the final out of the season for a champion, does that not scare you as much as it scares me that the Mets president, who seems to really lean into heavy analytics, might use that as data away toward trying to be the highest bidder for a 31-year-old closer?
Yeah. I mean, it would certainly make me nervous, to what you said. David Stearns doesn't fully have everybody's trust right now. This offseason is going to be a big, it's going to weigh a lot into how people feel about him going forward here. That would make me nervous for sure. We both completely would disagree with that being the takeaway. You can look at that data and you can interpret the same data in completely different ways. And there's also the other aspect of it, right? Of like, yeah, for all those teams that won World Series and were able to do it without a solidified closer or just using their actual closer differently, it changes based on the team and the circumstance. How many of those teams in the playoffs since 2011 never got a chance to get to the World Series because, their closer blew a game and they weren't able to get there? Look at what just happened in the World Series. Jeff Hoffman and the Blue Jays. Yeah, as good as he was for the playoffs, he blew the World Series with 2 outs to go for a championship. And that's how he's going to be remembered. That's why a team like the Blue Jays is now looking at Edwin Diaz, because they think it's really important, because they just suffered one of the most devastating losses we've ever seen in the World Series. So, you can make that argument if you want to from the Moneyball David Stearns perspective. But yeah, how many teams don't show up on that chart because they didn't even get to the World Series because of their bullpen?
Well, based off of like how valuable the Blue Jays might think Edwin Diaz is, how valuable I personally think he is, it really does make you question, does David Stearns value him the same way? So I'm assuming this number that you put on the rundown is according to SpotTrack, the projected contract. So SpotTrack has him at 4 years, $73 million as market value.
Spoiler alert.
Go ahead. He's going to get more.
He's getting more than that.
Yeah.
I was surprised. And this is just like, this is what fair market value is. Doesn't mean it's what he's going to get. I was surprised that it was that low.
I was also surprised it was this low. I also think this is evaluating him at 4 years, 73. If you add the other year, you're looking at 5 years, 95. I think that is 4 years, 91. 4 years, 91, because it's like 18.3.
So about $10 million less than his previous contract, which he signed in 2022.
Right. Which would still have him at the highest paid reliever in baseball, right? But or did Hader get more?
I'd have to check on that one.
Regardless, I think you're looking at a guy that, in my opinion, I don't know how you feel, he's going to get 9 figures at the end of the day.
Yeah. Hader signed a 5-year, $95 million contract with the Astros.
He's beating that offer. So I think at the bare minimum, 5 for. So let's start here. What contract do you think gets the deal done if you're the Mets?
Again, not my money. Don't want to bid against yourself. But again, it's like, I'm okay to bid against myself. There's no cap in this sport. So what's the harm? I just give him what he got last time.
505.
Give him the 5,102.
Yeah.
Give him 103. Make him feel better. Give him the suite upgrade. I don't care. It's just, we talked last week about, what's the cutoff number for Pete Alonso? What's, the limit that you don't want to pass? I don't think I have one with Edwin Diaz. I don't foresee a future where the news comes out that Edwin Diaz signed with the Detroit Tigers for a contract, and I'm going to be like, oh, thank God we didn't give him that. I think he's going to be worth whatever he gets. And you could make the argument he's probably even worth more than that because of the track record. So for me, if you want to try to give him this projected contract or the 5 years, $95 million to match Hader's most recent one, I'm good with that. If he wants more money, give it to him. There's no number for me that's going to be out of bounds on this one.
So 5 for 100 is less than what he got last time. And for those like doing the math here, like how is he at 18 million or how is 95 million technically a higher AAV? There's deferred money in his old contract that allowed him to opt out at a certain point. I also think it was weighted a specific way that if he opts out, he can then get more. 105 is like the number I'm at that I think gets it done for me. No reliever outside of Edwin Diaz and Josh Hader have ever been given 5-year contracts. So you're making him the highest paid reliever ever. You're giving him the biggest contract to a reliever ever. The market is where I'm interested to see how that plays out and how it affects the Mets. Do you think a team will like how maybe this is what I'm asking you is how much do you think this will be a bidding war that the Mets will have to enter into?
I mean, I think teams are going to be interested. Obviously he's the best closer in baseball. There is a need. Like, yeah, the Dodgers are back-to-back champions and they've done it without a closer. They would love a closer, like you said. Like they would love to not have to guess on the fly who the closer is going to be every October. Because they ripped through the league, especially in those early rounds. But I mean, you watch some of those games against the Phillies, it was really, really hairy at times. And I mean, we had a texting conversation during game 1 or 2 of that series where we were like, you were basically saying Dave Robb's trying to get himself fired because he's bringing
game
in
2. Yeah,
he
brought in Trinan. Yeah,
Trinan and Tanner Scott came in at one point, and it's just like, what the hell is he doing here? They would love to get an Edwin Diaz. So I think there will be a bidding war to some extent. I'm curious to see what impact the qualifying offer has here, if at all. Maybe that kind of weeds out people who were halfway in, halfway out, and that weeds out some of the people. I don't think that's going to scare off the heavy interested parties here. So I think, the Mets will have to compete here for sure. But again, I don't see how you end up on the short end on this one. He's your guy. You know how valuable he is. And the need is just as pressing for you as it is for any of these other teams.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only other team I'm worried about is Toronto because look, as much as I tried to throw Hoffman and Bale here, I do think they would rather somebody else pitch their 9th inning of the World Series should they ever get there again. They're also just a franchise that's always looked to spend. They for years they were in on Ohtani, they were in on Soto, they were in on all the big free agents from the past several years and never could get anybody to go there. And the big contract they were finally able to hand out was to their own guy that was a Canadian legend, because of who his dad was. Mm-hmm. I think they'll be in on Kyle Tucker, but I think if they can get in on the Diaz sweepstakes, I don't think there will be a money issue for Toronto. So I would say 5. I'm going to actually put it out there. I think 5-1-10 ends up being the final number for Diaz. I think whoever gets him is going to outbid the other. And this is where I'm actually going to lean on the Rosenthal article. I am very curious about who ends up getting him and how many other shooters the Mets are going to have if Stearns doesn't just go, listen, like there are other options for a year or two that I could take. I can give 15 million to and have more flexibility to build out the rest of my bullpen, which I will say, as much as I would hate that answer, I do understand the Mets do not have a setup man or really anybody other than Brooks Raley that I am confident in that bullpen at the moment. So we'll see what directions he potentially goes here.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue because I want to talk about the doomsday scenario of Edwin Diaz leaves, he goes to the Toronto Blue Jays, and now
the contingency plan.
The Edwin Diaz contingency plan. The Mets now need a closer. When we're just going to focus on closer here, but just for the background, they're also going to need to get a setup guy. They're also going to need to get some middle reliever. It's just more now that they have to do. So pulled some names.
Yeah. Do you want me to go through it, or do you want to go through it?
You can go, because I know you have some additional names that I didn't initially write down.
Oh no, I'm going with your list here. You went through you did the spot track polls, which is what I was about to do, and then you said that you were going to do it, and made me very happy who I'm working with these days. So these are some names. I believe there are 9 names here of closers and high-end relievers that are going to be on the market. So Pete Fairbanks of the Tampa Bay Rays. This is a name I'm actually very interested in and would love to be in addition to Edwin Diaz.
Me too.
This offseason.
He is very appealing to me. And it, again, should be stated, this is not just Rays, but ridiculous that they declined this guy's option and made him a free agent. Thank you. But bad for baseball.
Yeah. 3 years, $41 million is his spot track projected contract based on market value. Robert Suarez, multi-time All-Star from the
Padres,
potentially going broke San Diego Padres, 4 for $67, which would be right below what Tanner Scott got. I think this is like the once Diaz signs, he's the guy that gets the contract.
Agreed.
Ryan Helsley. Heard of him? 3 for 40 is what Spot Track is referencing. This is 1+1. This is 2 years with an opt out after 1, and maybe that's what this contract ends up being. 3 years with an opt out after 1. But he is absolutely hitting the open market again soon after a bounce back year where people didn't just watch him forget how to pitch in a big market. Yeah. Then I'll just go through these next ones pretty quick. Emilio Pagan.
It falls off here.
Emilio Pagan, former Cincinnati Reds, 1 year, $12 million. Devin Williams, how the mighty have fallen. 1 year, $5.7 million. Raisel Iglesias used to be on the Braves, then used to be on the Angels. 2 year, $17.6. Luke Weaver, former closer for the Yankees, turned middle reliever. 2 years, $19 million. Kenley Jansen, our old friend.
Still puttering around.
1 year. Gonna solidify a Hall of Fame case. Not a good one, but like we'll hit some certain milestones this year if he gets a bunch of
closer.
saves.
And amazing to think that guy was a catcher.
Yeah. 1 year, $13.6 million. And Kyle Finnegan, former NL East closer, then got traded to the Tigers. 2 years, $19.9 million. You put some trade options here too. Carlos Estevez has 2 years, $23 million left from the Royals. Dennis Santana is arbitration eligible from the Pirates. Who knows if they'd like to spend.
He was awesome last year.
He was.
By the way. I was surprised they didn't trade him just because even though he's ARB eligible still, he's like 31 years old at this point. He would be very enticing. I again would not want him to be the closer of the Mets, but definitely would be an interesting get. And then the last one I don't think is actually going to be available, but I did want to throw him on here just in case.
Cade Smith under control until 2029 from the Cleveland Guardians. I'll just say this, of this market, this just more solidifies Edwin Diaz is like the priority here. When we eventually do a first base episode, I will have decent contingency plans to be like, all right, you lost Pete. Now you pivot to this. I'll be okay. If Pete Fairbanks is the opening day closer and like everybody else is like Dylan Ross as a rookie is your setup man, I'm going to be terrified because I see like plenty of names here that I would be happy became the setup man for the Mets, not the Edwin Diaz replacement personally.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like the gaps are so large here. I think if you like plotted this out on a piece of paper, it'd be like Edwin Diaz, 20 blank spaces. And then it's like Pete Fairbanks, Robert Suarez, 10 blank spaces. And then you get to like Helsley, Pagan, more blank spaces, and then the rest, not including the trade options. But it's Diaz and then a couple other nice B options who are significantly below that, and then it falls off a cliff. Would love Fairbanks as a setup man. I think that'd be pretty sick, honestly.
Is that why you put him first on the list, by the way?
I put him first for that reason. He was also one of the few guys that they actually projected to make a decent contract. Suarez they have as the most money. But yeah, Fairbanks, I think, is my top choice if we really have to live in a world without Edwin Diaz as the Mets closer. I've always liked the stuff that he had in Tampa Bay. Again, like, can't believe they made him available. His option was only like $13-14 million, and he had a really good year, and they declined it because they are broke, or they cry as if they are while they try to get a new ballpark. So I would really like him if we had to go that route. And then Robert Suarez, like, outside of Fairbanks and Suarez, there's no free agent option here that I would feel good about replacing Edwin Diaz, and I still would not be happy with either of those two top guys replacing Diaz.
Yeah, that's where I am. I think there's no replacement for Edwin Diaz where I'm happy. You're basically going to have to hope you patch together a bullpen like all these other World Series champs to be on that list. Otherwise, and that's the thing about the list I read that's so misleading, and it's what I hope David Stearns isn't looking at, is like the 162 games. A lot of these teams struggled to even make the playoffs and then found a way to sneak their way in to get hot. You need a closer for a 162 game season.
Ask the 2019 Mets. Ironically.
Well, the funny part is they had Edwin Diaz.
It's just, I know, that's why I say ironically, just but a different version.
Yeah. And that I guess is where we can actually close, Rich. Like,
yeah, close.
The fact that, well done. The fact that I'm sitting here 6 years later and I'm like, we cannot lose Edwin Diaz. I cannot watch anybody else close ninth innings.
Imagine telling Andrew in August of 2019 that you would feel this way.
I was so dug in on you dorks are annoying. I don't care what Jared Kelenich's AAA stats are. And every Diaz home run that he would give up, I was like, I have no leg to stand on. Robinson Cano stinks. Edwin Diaz is the worst reliever the Mets have ever had. And, lo and behold, he turned his, and that's why it's a testament to Diaz. He has literally earned the reputation that he could do it in New York. I know you're like me when it comes to emotional and sentimental reliving of Mets moments. The amount of times I've watched that Kyle Schwarber at bat to clinch the 2024 NLDS, like, strikes him out on 102, like, goes nuts, sends the entire dog pile away from him because he'll never be near another dog pile again after what happened in the WBC. And look, just to add, this is the last thing I'll say, just to add a personal element too. Shout out to Mrs. Claudio. I walked into my wedding reception to Narco, like, my two buddies, two of my groomsmen played trumpets, like pretending to play. I should say they pretended to play trumpets, but like had toy trumpets and put on the Timmy Trumpet fedora and like played us into the reception hall. That's what Edwin Diaz and that entrance means to Mets fans, and more specifically means to me. And I don't want to have to learn a new entrance. So part of it's emotional. I don't want to see
Hell's Bells.
Well, okay. But you want to talk about doomsday contingency plans? If Ryan Hell's you the closer for the Mets next year, I'm gonna start flipping some furniture. But yeah, he means something from an emotional standpoint to Mets fans, and it helps that he's also the best player at the position on the market. And as we've kind of documented here today, like, he would probably help you get really close to winning a World Series as well. So
yeah, I mean, he exemplifies what people love about when they fall in love with athletes here in New York. Is he came here and he got punched in the mouth and he got knocked down. And a lot of guys, it would be easy to never get back up. We've seen that a lot of times. Look at all the Jets quarterbacks. They get punched. they don't get up. They go further into the dirt. Edwin Diaz picked himself back up, figured it out, had some ups and downs in 2020. And since 2021, has been nails for this team. You saw it in 2023 when he got injured that March. The air of that entire season got sucked out. You knew it before the season started. It was like the stars were not aligned for them that year, and they really missed him and his energy. You love the guy for that, and he's done a lot for this team, and I don't want to see a version of them that does not have him. He's one of the few guys that you can say in 2025 did their job and did it extremely well, and he should be back here until his career is essentially over.
Yeah. No, look, my greatest fear is that list I read out earlier is something David Stearns will then use to be like, see, you don't need to pay your closer $20 million a year. And I would counterpoint with pay him $20 million a year, dork. Like I would like Edwin Diaz. I would not like the randomness of you trying to patch together a bullpen because you haven't shown that you can personally. So yeah, very curious to see how these negotiations play out over the next couple weeks and months.
What will happen this upcoming week? We will see.
We will see.
More rumors and reports, I'm sure. If any news actually does break and somebody signs or gets traded, obviously, we will go live with an emergency podcast as soon as we are able to. Aside from, go ahead.
Do you think, let's end on this.
Okay.
Do you think anything will actually happen over the next week? A signing or anything like that?
No, I think it's a little early still for that. I would never say 100% for sure, but if I had to bet on it, I would say we come back next week and we go through a list of more rumors and we kind of focus on another one of these questions for the offseason, but I'm not sure that the Mets have made any legitimate moves in the next week, but we'll see. As we get out of here, as always, we have our Patreon exclusive bonus episodes that drop every Thursday morning. I'm going to be hosting this week and joined by Sports Illustrated Pat Ragazzo. So I'm really excited for that conversation. He says some good reporting early on in this off season. If you want access to those full episodes, $5 a month on Patreon. You can also sign up on our Substack for that, and it gets you access to all that, to the coffee show, to any bonus content we may want to make in the future as well. Otherwise, you'll just get 8 to 10 minute free preview clip on our YouTube and the podcast feed. Check out the newsletter at justmets.net. That drops every single weekday during the off season. During the season, it's 7 days a week. Has breaking news posts as well, and that is free to join. You can, again, become a paid member to get some paid exclusives. We have a full free agency guide that's going to be dropping later this week that is exclusive to paid subscribers. So if you're subscribed on the Patreon, you will still get access to that on the Substack and vice versa. So that's all the plugs. Appreciate you, Andrew, as always, and appreciate you guys for watching and listening. Until next week, let's go Mets. Please re-sign Edwin Diaz.